So in today's show, we're going to take a deeper dive into the importance of muscle quality throughout lifespan. We're going to focus on muscle size and muscle strength and the importance of that so that you can function throughout your life as you get older. We all know people who are in their 50s or 60s who are limited from a mobility standpoint because they have muscle atrophy. They have slow gait speed or they walk really slow. That is linked with higher odds of getting dementia, cancer, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, and much more. These are diseases that prematurely kill you. And so we want to improve our function. We want to feel and move better as we get older. So the focus of today's conversation is going to be focusing on muscle strength and size, not just to convert you into bodybuilder. I don't want you to be 350 pounds of pure muscle in your 70s, right? We're talking about functioning optimally throughout lifespan. Now, it turns out that skeletal muscle and muscle quality is an independent and actually a variable that is linked with mortality. And so low muscle quality, low muscle strength can predict or increase your odds of dying prematurely. So we're going to focus in and talk about a paper that I stumbled across that I want you to actually check out in the show notes. I found it to be very interesting, and we're going to highlight a lot of different features from this paper and other papers. So let's just dive right into it. The title here is It's Not Just Muscle Mass, a review of quality, composition, and metabolism during aging as determinants of muscle function and mobility in later life. Let's emphasize those last three words, mobility in later life. Again, we've all had injuries before. Say you threw out your back or you rolled your ankle and you're sitting on the couch and you can't do anything. You know how boring that is and how depressing that is? Well, imagine being in your 60s or 70s and being so atrophied that every time you get up, you can barely walk to go get a sip of water. Your grandkids are outside yelling at you saying, hey, grandpa, hey, grandma, let's go play. And you can't really move because you're out of breath or you're winded or your back hurts or your legs hurt or whatever. You want to prevent that. And there's some things that you can do today to increase the probability that in the future, that doesn't happen to you. And so that's what we're going to focus on today, because as the paper talked about, it's not just muscle mass, it's muscle quality, and most importantly, muscle strength. And I want to emphasize that, and I'll say this probably, unfortunately, many times throughout this, strength is so important, and approaching your resistance training and or high intensity interval training, keeping in mind that you need to optimize for strength is really important. I have worked with so many clients over the years. I've been in and out of gym since I was like 12 years old. And I see a lot of people who are in their 50s and they're not training to maintain strength. And this is really, really important because it turns out that those fast twitch muscle fibers, the type 2B muscle fibers that help engage in strength training based exercises and so forth, those tend to atrophy first before the slow twitch type 1 fibers. And so we need to optimize our workouts commensurate with, in concurrence, to improve those muscle fibers that naturally tend to atrophy faster, okay, than the aerobic-based fibers. So that's really important. We're going to talk about powerlifting. We're going to talk about weightlifting, going to failure, different modalities, just to keep in mind this aspect that you need to train the system that naturally atrophies first. So let's talk about a quote here from Albert Einstein. He said, nothing happens until something moves. And so really important, because if you can't move, nothing happens. So if you're functionally limited because you have atrophied muscles, weak muscles, your life is going to become smaller and smaller. And you're not going to be able to go play tennis with your friends. You're not going to be able to go walk with the grandkids. And so we're going to quantify some different terms here. What is poor muscle quality? I mean, this is something that you're probably wondering. Maybe you've never heard about muscle quality. MQ. MQ is the acronym for muscle quality that scientists are talking about a lot. In older adults, mobility limitations have been defined as self-reported inability to walk a mile, climb stairs, or perform heavy housework. Okay, so if you have trouble walking a mile, if you're like, oh my gosh, I don't think I could walk a mile, well, you need to improve your muscle quality and your athletic, your general physical fitness, because that is a problem. We should be able to walk a mile. We should be able to climb stairs without feeling like we need to take a nap or, have a soda pop, right? So the scientists go on to say that even differences in midlife leisure, physical activity, can positively reduce the risk of impaired mobility in older age. So what you do in your 40s and 50s and in your 30s impacts the trajectory of the muscle quality and the mobility later in life. So if you're playing tennis with friends now, if you're going out hiking, if you're going golfing and walking with your clubs as opposed to sitting in the golf cart, all of these different leisure time activities are going to influence the muscle quality and therefore your function and mobility later in life. And so this is really important, particularly for this reason, because muscle quality is associated with the history of falls in octogenarians. So various studies have shown over the years that individuals that fall and have recurring falls, these are people that are in the ER or at the doctor's office all the time because their family's worried about, hey, Grandpa Joe keeps falling. Like, what is going on? Well, it turns out independent observations have been made here. Recurring fallers and people who fall compared to people who don't fall have statistically independent increases in a reduction in muscle quality. We'll talk about what that is. There's this fibrosis element, there's loss of size, loss of strength, and there's also infiltration of fat within the muscle. So you've been to like Safeway before and you've seen sort of the marbled meat. Well, that happens, this intramuscular fat and intermuscular fat. So within the exterior of the fat or exterior of the muscle, kind of around the sheath there, and then also within the muscle, fat accumulates, and that leads to a functional decline in the quality of the muscle. And so that is independently a predictor of recurring falls. Now, we all know, as Peter Attia and many other people have talked about, we're basically, as we get into our 60s and 70s, we're one fall away from our death. And so I know that sounds kind of morbid to think about, but we all know people who have fallen downstairs or fallen on their bike and they hit their head or this or that, and they couldn't recover, and their quality of life just went downhill very quickly. And that led to them to be in a hospice or something like that. I don't want that to happen to anyone that you know, and particularly to you yourself. You know, we focus so much in life on building up our retirement account, our 401k, and our SEP. How often do we hear from healthcare practitioners that we should improve the quality and the strength of our muscles so as to prevent falling when we get older? This is really, really important. So we're going to, in just a moment, talk about the rate of atrophy, comparing loss of muscle size, comparing loss of muscle strength. In fact, it's important that you understand that you lose strength at a much faster percentage rate as you age, but that is malleable. That's plastic. You can influence that by your types of resistance training. Now, first, friends, before we get to that, I want to welcome you back. It's Mike Mutzel. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this video with a friend who may benefit from this information. Thank you for hitting that like button and subscribing. It really goes a long way. Also, we're spending a ton of time to update the show notes to make sure that the references that we talk about are accessible to you so that you can share these scientific studies and make this research more accessible to individuals who are trying to optimize health and support their longevity pathways and so forth. So that is made possible through our sister company, Myoscience Nutrition. So I'd encourage you to check out the new electrolyte sticks that feature creatine, taurine, Redmond real salts. You have magnesium, potassium, a whole bunch of different goodies in there that can help you optimize your athletic performance. Again, Myoscience helps support the production of this podcast and making the show notes top notch and things like that. But there's a great promotion going on that you should know about. So we have rolled out, the orange flavor. There's also a natural citrus lemon lime coming out, which is awesome. It tastes phenomenal. Some people are just not into orange. Maybe you're more into, lemon lime. So I would encourage you to check out the promotion that we have going on through the middle part of August. It's buy one, get the second one 50% off. So you can check that out. That discount is automatic. It's a pre-sale. So we're going to ship this towards the end of August, and you get that discount now through the 15th of August. So I would encourage you to check out the links below. Click that link and you'll go right to myoscience.com. And when you purchase 2 of the new citrus lemon lime flavor, you get 50% off. And so it's a great promotion. It tastes phenomenal. Again, there's a gram of creatine in there. You get taurine, you get magnesium, you get real salt, all sorts of goodies. It tastes phenomenal. This really does work. There's close to 250 reviews on this product right now. So people are digging it before working out, before a sauna, intra-workout, in the middle of a workout, or after a sauna. So check it out. And also all the studies that we talk about will be in the links below. So please check that out. And thank you for participating in these shows. Now let's continue on and talk about why strength really matters. This is, again, something that isn't talked a lot about. We hear about muscle size, building muscle, but what about preserving strength? This is important because let me share with you the stats here. So aging is associated with a decline in muscle mass and muscle strength, generally from the 3rd or 4th decades onward. So that means in your 30s and 40s, it's all downhill from here. But friends, Like, we can slow this process down. We can absolutely do that. So estimates of the rate of muscle loss per year vary between studies from 0.4% to 2.6% per year. Now, again, it depends on the person. There's a lot of inter-individual differences here. So the more physically fit you are, the more protein you eat, the more dedicated you are towards fitness, the slower the rate of muscle loss is. But here's what's so important is strength. Estimations of the rate of muscle strength loss during aging are reported to be around 1 to 3% per year, while the decline in muscle power is even greater still. Now, I want to just pause here. We're going to talk about some of the loss in mitochondria that impact, endurance and things like that. But when you go to the gym and you're hearing this information, you're like, look, I need to get on this. I saw that video you did with Tom Cruise and how he has barely aged over the past 20 years. Look, I know I need to do something different in my life. You're saying to yourself, just doing some arm curls and some of the machines that you see, I implore you to start going to failure at least several days per week, not on every exercise, but really pushing those high force output motor neurons on those fast twitch muscle fibers. So just doing sets of 12 to 15 like this, where you're just conversational, you could have a conversation with your spouse or with your daughter or your son or father or something like that. That's not really ideal for preserving these type 2B muscle fibers, the so-called fast twitch muscle fibers that are responsible for generating and producing the force and the strength. So we need to go to failure sometimes. We need to focus on the negative or the eccentric movements. Really important. And again, it doesn't work with a trainer who is a certified strength and conditioning specialist who understands how to program for you so that you can optimize this and have some periodization built into your programming. And I would recommend a podcast on the Huberman Lab with Andy Galpin. It was a great 3-hour episode. I'll link that here, where they talk about really tactically how to build in periodization and hypertrophy in this, but really important to focus on going to failure so as to optimize the strength. And I would even encourage you to do a powerlifting class, get into powerlifting a little bit, not to be a power lifter, but so that you understand how to build strength, because the periodization during powerlifting and the low rep sets really help you to understand going to failure and preserving that strength. And why is that important? That's not really important for building muscle size. It's important for preserving the strength that basically dissipates faster than the muscle size over time. Important to understand here, okay? So the decline in muscle strength during aging is reported to be 2 to 5-fold greater than the loss of muscle mass during the years of between 70 and 79 years of age. Really important stuff, because if you're talking about getting up out of a chair, picking up a grandchild, getting groceries out of a car, doing all the things that are involved in living independently, you need strength for that. And you do not want to have a strength limitation be the consequence of that be a fall that could be, again, accelerating your demise. So you want to act now. This is like building up your strength retirement account so that when you retire, you're strong, okay? So let's talk about the changes in the architecture or the structure of muscle and talk about sort of what happens here so that you better understand how to design your training modality. So changes in the structure of muscle, loss of fast twitch muscle fibers, and the motor units and the neuromuscular activation. So some studies of muscle fibers in advanced age indicate that there may be a shift in muscle fiber composition with a progressive loss, as I've mentioned, of the fast twitch muscle fibers, and the jargon to characterize these fibers is known as the type 2B fibers. So these fast twitch muscle fibers are recruited during high intensity activity, whereas the type 1 muscle fibers are recruited during low intensity activities of daily living, like walking, like gardening, like doing the dishes, cleaning your windows, all good stuff. Okay, it's movement. It's better than sitting on the couch eating cupcakes. However, doing those activities is not going to activate the type 2B fibers that are preferentially lost as you age. So what does that mean? When you go to the gym, you need to be a little explosive. When you do those pull-ups, when you do those squats, you need to have sufficient weight so that the 5th, 6th, 7th rep is challenging for you. Again, I see so many people, they're on the leg press, reading a book or a newspaper, and they're on the phone, just going lollygagging through the movements. That is not activating those fast twitch muscle fibers and the neuromuscular motor units that innervate those muscle fibers. There's other papers that have found that the motor units tend to become dysregulated and dysfunctional, and they're a feature of poor muscle quality. So when the neuromuscular activation and those neuromuscular units, the neuronal aspect of the muscle becomes dysregulated, that also affects the muscle quality. And so when you're training for strength, one of the first adaptations is actually the motor units, the neurophysiology of muscle. And so that's important to understand as well. So these high force motor units atrophy first, important to understand. But there's another feature here, and this has to do with the metabolic consequences of muscle loss and poor muscle qualities, and that is the inter and intramuscular fat accumulation. So it's known as the intramuscular adipose tissue. It has emerged as an important factor underpinning muscle quality and has also become an independent predictor of poor muscle function in older adults. Intramuscular adipose tissue is an ectopic adipose tissue, depot located under the fascia and within the muscle. And so this basically, when there's a lot of intramuscular and intermuscular fat, it causes insulin resistance in the muscle, which is a problem because we know that muscle is a huge reservoir or depot for glucose. And so if your skeletal muscle is infiltrated with fat because of insulin resistance or poor dietary choices or underuse, then that can cause systemic or whole body insulin resistance, and that's problematic. And this is just another reason why exercise, especially as you age, is so important to prevent this ectopic or this buildup of fat within the muscle that renders the muscle dysfunctional. So really important there. Okay, so we talked about all the bad stuff, right? You start to lose the fast twitch muscle fibers and the high force motor units first. You start to build up fat within the muscle. You start to lose the mitochondria. This is something we haven't yet talked about, but we're going to get to. It's important to keep in mind cardio and walking and high intensity interval training because as you age, you not only lose the size of the muscle, you not only lose strength within the muscle, but the mitochondria that are responsible for helping to generate ATP when you're walking, hiking, biking, playing tennis, the mitochondria DNA quantity and density goes down with age too. That's all reversible, but this is why we need to both do resistance training and aerobic training, right? And so here's what's great about this. Improvements in muscle architecture are possible with just 4 to 5 weeks of regular resistance training, and notable changes in muscle architecture appear to precede changes in muscle size, okay? So this is important. So in 4 to 5 weeks, you're not noticing like big bulging biceps, but you are improving the microarchitecture that is improving muscle quality. And so just because you're not building massive muscles, you might be thinking, well, I'm going to the gym, I'm getting stronger, but I'm not seeing any results. That's still good. Still continue with that progress. You might need to tweak some diet, aspects to actually see more visible muscle, but there is microscopic observations occurring, and that's important. Okay. Now let's take a deeper dive into the mitochondria. I just sort of mentioned it, but I think it's important that we talk about this. So studies in subjects between 18 years of age and 90 years of age indicate that mitochondrial DNA and ATP production within the mitochondria tend to decrease with age. So skeletal muscle mitochondria capacity and efficiency, as well as whole body peak aerobic capacity, have been shown to be associated with gait speed. That is walking speed. Again, so people that walk really slow and they're kind of staggering and things like that, that is correlated with poor mitochondria within the lower leg muscles. And so again, this is reversible by just going out and going on a hike, going on a bike ride, doing some sprints, on the ski erg or on the Concept 2 or the Echo bike or your bicycle. So furthermore, individuals who are aerobically active in young, mid, and later life have higher muscle strength than their sedentary peers of the same age range. Regular physical activity is a powerful stimulus to retain or improve aerobic capacity in middle-aged adults, which in turn can help maintain muscle function and mobility into older age. Okay. So lots of things that we can do here from our recreational activity. Again, so what do you do with your kids? What do you do with your spouse? Are you watching the latest series on Netflix, or are you going out and gardening? Are you going out and playing tennis, pickleball, picking up stand-up paddleboarding, going on a hike on the weekend as opposed to just driving in a national park? Like there's a lot of different things that you can do. You can structure your lifestyle so as to increase your recreational physical activity. If that's all you do and you don't have access to a gym or a kettlebell or an echo bike or a Concept 2, that's way better than nothing. Even better yet would be 3 to 4 days a week of resistance training, and you're hitting most of your major muscles, splitting it into an upper body press, a lower body press, an upper body pull, a lower body pull. If you don't know what that looks like or whatever, I can share with you some of the home workout videos that we've done. I'll link that in the show notes so that you have a better idea. We also did a video with Dr. Sean Baker, who's 55 years young, and we did a full body workout, deadlifts, we did jumps, we did the Concept 2, we did the ski erg, we did weighted vest squats. Like, we did a lot of things with minimal equipment. And again, he's 55 years young, so keep that in mind. But we were training for strength. We were doing explosive work, which is most important as you age. And incidentally, the thing that I see aged people do the least priority when it comes to resistance training. I see a lot of band work. I see a lot of mobility, but when I go to the gym, I see very few people over the age of 50 really pushing it, trying to optimize for strength. And that is the whole point of this podcast, is to encourage you to think differently about how you approach your resistance training and your aerobic training, so that you can focus on some of that explosive movements so that you can walk faster, you can have better gait speed, you can have increased mitochondrial density, and you can prevent and reduce the probability that you're going to fall and break a hip or something to some such effect later in life. And certainly, last but not least, I want to share with you this study. We talked about this before. There are shared gene structures between muscle loss and type 2 diabetes. We know that metabolic disease tends to increase in its prevalence as you get older. Metabolic disease is impossible to disentangle from heart disease, cancer, and cognitive decline. These are two sides of the same coin. So suffice it to say, poor muscle quality increases the probability of poor metabolic health, which increases the probability of all the diseases that are going to shorten your quality of life and likely be the cause of your demise. Cancer, heart disease, dementia, Alzheimer's, autoimmunity. So it's important to understand there's this shared crosstalk. Fat infiltration within the muscle, poor muscle quality, increases the inflammatory tone in the body. And we know that exercise is a wonderful way to reduce chronic inflammation and decrease that inflammatory stimulus. So I encourage you to go out there, focus on strength, prioritize for strength, try to get a little uncomfortable, maybe do 5 sets of 5 instead of 3 sets of 15 on some, primary mover that you normally do, whether it's a press, whether it's a deadlift or a hip hinge, things like that. Try to really push yourself a little bit to cause that neurologic intervention, to your muscles so that you can stimulate those high force output motor units within the muscle. So hopefully you found this helpful. Let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know if you embark on a resistance training program, what changes you notice in your lifestyle with regards to confidence, movement, and how you feel and vitality. So as always, friends, I'm grateful that you watched all the way to the very end. Thank you for checking out the show notes. Thank you for subscribing, and we'll catch you in a future one down the road. Bye now.